Hello everyone, and welcome to Michael's Retro Game Reviews. Now, the eternal question, what would happen if you crossed different types of games together? Let's say, for example, Resident Evil and Final Fantasy. Well, the good chaps at Square Enix, formerly known as Squaresoft, have already done this with Parasite Eve. So the question is it any good? Well, in this review, we're going to find out. It's reviewing time, so here we go. At the time of its release in Japan in 1997, Parasite Eve was relatively obscure as far as Japanese role-player gamers were concerned. Its 1998 release window in the US coincided with the success of the Final Fantasy series. Based on the popular Japanese novel of the same name, which was also turned into a movie as well, Parasite Eve is Square's first significant attempt to establish a new style of cinematic role-playing game, the cinematic RPG. True to this new term, the game is literally bursting at the seams with computer-generated cinematic sequences, but at the same time abandons many of the elements we've come to expect after the company's past efforts. While that's not necessarily a bad thing, the game is certainly different than anything Square's done before. Parasite Eve is one of those games that slipped under the radar and managed to be near excellent. Despite a few flaws, the gameplay, story, and soundtrack are strong enough to create a very satisfying gaming experience. Parasite Eve is a must-buy for gamers looking for something different to play. It's just too bad it never came out here in the UK. The story. Our hero is Aya Bree, an NYPD detective. One night out of the blue, she decides to go to the opera, and during the opera, the audience suddenly bursts into flames. The only person who's unaffected by this is our hero, and of course her date. And soon it becomes apparent Eve is behind this, and the only person who can possibly fight her and save New York is Aya. Okay, the biggest question you must have after hearing all this is, what? Well, the reason, without spoiling anything, is Eve and Aya have the ability to control the mitochondria in their cells, which prevents Aya from bursting into flames when she's around Eve, and plus it gives them both powers. And no, not them kind of powers that Jedis have, but it is very similar though, because if you think about it, both Aya and Eve get their powers through the mitochondria in their cells, whereas Jedis, they get their powers through the midichlorians in their cells. Yeah, alright, I'm getting off topic. As much as I love Star Wars, we're talking about Parasite Eve. So you get the basic idea of the storyline without giving too much away. On to the gameplay. As I said, it's like a mixture of Final Fantasy and Resident Evil. You run around the levels, find a key or two, and solve the odd puzzle. But to be honest, I wouldn't really call them puzzles because they're just too easy. And this is the best bit, the battles. They're done in an action RPG kind of way, which means you can move anywhere you like in the battle grid, and once your PK meter is charged up, you can attack with your weapon, use your parasitic powers, use items, all change what weapon and armour you are using. The coolest thing about the battle system is it's always evolving and throwing new challenges at you, and no two battles are ever really the same. What I mean by this is a lot of RPGs, you tend to do the same thing in battles over and over and over again, and after a while it gets kind of repetitive. I think the only downside is that this isn't a very long game. On my first try it took me 12 hours, but I imagine the average person could finish this game in about 10 to 15 hours. So, the graphics. Well, much like the PSX Final Fantasy and Resident Evil games, you have pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D elements placed on top of them. Now, I do very much like the pre-rendered backgrounds in this game. They're well made and have lots of detail in them. But the one thing that lets down the graphics in this game is the 3D characters that populate this world. They look kind of ropey-ish. I know this game is on the PlayStation, and early games with 3D graphics were dodgy at best. But the PSX was capable of a little bit more than this, I think. They don't really look in the game, they just stand out in an otherwise half decent looking game. The music. On the back of the game box, it claims this game is a cinematic RPG, and on the music side of things, it lives up to that. Now, the music is very strange. It uses a lot of instruments, some opera music, with just a hint of techno to create something that I don't think any other game has ever heard before. There's a lot of music in this game, and most of the time it's used for ambience, but when it needs to, it'll kick it up a gear, and wow, it'll just blow you away. Just the intro for this game, the music in it is amazing. Or the opera scene at the beginning of the game, or every time you fight Eve, or Aya's theme song. Okay, I'm getting carried away, but you get my point about the music, it's really good. So, my final thoughts. If you're bored of the usual types of games that are out there, and you look for something new and fresh in the realm of retro gaming, you can't go wrong with Parasite Eve. Yes, sure, it's got a few gameplay quirks, but nothing that breaks the game, and in a way it kind of adds to its charm. So, I give this game my thumb approval. I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, see you later.